You know that feeling after sexual contact when instead of being filled with life, you feel emptied, drained, as if someone wrung you out like a wet cloth, and all your vitality simply left your body. You lie there, and instead of the glow they promise in magazines, there's this hollow ache in your chest, this emptiness that whispers, something vital just left you. This isn't your imagination. This isn't weakness. This isn't something wrong with you. This is the natural consequence of losing what the ancient Taoists called Jing, the most concentrated, most potent form of life energy that exists in the human body. Every spiritual tradition knew this. The temple priestesses of Inanna knew this. The Egyptian initiates knew this. The Taoist masters who lived for centuries knew this. They knew that sexual energy is not just pleasure. It is prima materia, the raw substance of creation itself, contained within your flesh. And when it leaves your body through physical release, the alchemical vessel cracks open. The gold pours out before it can transform. You return to Negredo, the blackening, the emptying, the death of potential. You've felt this, haven't you? Not just the physical tiredness, but that deeper exhaustion. The way your creative fire dims after sex. The way your mental sharpness softens. The way your spiritual clarity clouds over. You wake up the next day, and something in you is just less vibrant, less alive, less you. The ancient alchemists understood. Sexual energy is the fuel for the great work. When this fire is spent through outward release, the athanor of your inner transformation goes cold. The vessel empties, and you're left wondering why you feel so depleted when everyone says sex should energize you. But here's what they don't tell you. Here's the secret that was deliberately hidden, systematically destroyed, erased from human memory for 2,000 years. Sexual energy was never meant to be lost. In the sacred temples of Inanna and Aphrodite, in the mystery schools of Isis and Hathor, in the hidden chambers where priestesses held the flame of ancient wisdom, they knew something that modern humanity has forgotten. They knew that sexual energy, this densest and most powerful form of life force, could be transformed, transmuted, turned inward and upward instead of outward and downward. They knew the path from lead to gold, from depletion to power, from the death of Negredo to the birth of spiritual fire. This wasn't about denying pleasure. This wasn't about suppression or shame. This was about understanding that there are two paths the sexual current can take through your body. The biological path, downward, outward, into procreation and exhaustion. And the alchemical path, upward, inward, into transmutation and illumination. One path ends in emptiness. The other path leads to the birth of the philosopher's stone within your own flesh. And tonight, I will transmit to you the keys to the second path, the 7 gates that the temple priestesses walked through, the 7 stages of sexual alchemy that will transform your most primal energy into spiritual power. You are about to learn what was forbidden, what was hidden, what the patriarchal religions called the most shameful custom, because they understood that a woman who masters her sexual energy cannot be controlled. She becomes too powerful, too sovereign, too awake. So they buried this knowledge. They called the priestesses whores. They burned the temples. They rewrote the texts. But the knowledge survived. It survived in fragments, in whispers, in the practices of Taoist masters and tantric yogis and alchemical adepts who understood that the body is not separate from spirit. It is the vessel where spirit is born. And now, this knowledge returns to you. For millennia, from Babylon to Egypt to the temples of India, women held a secret that could not be spoken openly. In the sacred precincts of Inanna, the goddess of heaven and earth, priestesses practiced what the Greeks later called hemorrhaging, sacred marriage. But this wasn't marriage as we understand it today. This was the ritualized circulation of sexual energy as a technology of divine communion. The priestesses of Ishtar in ancient Sumeria, the devotees of Astarte in Phoenicia, the hierodules of Aphrodite in Corinth, the sacred women of Hathor's temple in Dendera. For thousands of years, across every ancient civilization, there existed a class of women who understood that sexual energy was not profane. It was the most sacred force in existence. But here's what history got wrong. When the Greek historian Herodotus wrote about these practices, when the early church fathers condemned them, they described it as prostitution. Sacred prostitution, they called it, with contempt dripping from every word. But they were blind. They saw the outer form and missed the inner essence. These women weren't selling their bodies. They were transmitting knowledge. The temple wasn't a brothel. It was a mystery school, and what happened there wasn't transaction. It was initiation. Men came to learn what it meant to encounter the divine feminine. Women came to remember their own power. And at the center of it all was this understanding. Sexual energy, when consciously circulated and directed, becomes the fuel for spiritual awakening. They knew how to open the gates. They knew how to move energy up the spine instead of letting it pour out and be lost. They knew the breathing patterns, the sounds, the internal locks that seal the vessel and force the energy to rise. And then the world changed. Patriarchal monotheisms swept across the ancient world like a purifying fire. Judaism, Christianity, Islam, each in their turn declared war on the sacred feminine. The temples were destroyed. The priestesses were murdered or driven into hiding. The practices were declared demonic. Why? Because they were afraid. Afraid of what happens when women reclaim sovereignty over their own life force. Afraid of what happens when sexual energy stops flowing outward toward men and children and instead circulates inward to feed a woman's own power. Afraid of women who could not be exhausted, could not be depleted, could not be controlled through the natural draining of their vitality. So they called it sin. They called it the whore of Babylon. They wrote laws to erase it. And for 2,000 years, the knowledge went underground. But it didn't die. The Taoists in China preserved it in their practices of internal alchemy. The tantric yogis of India maintained it in their sadhanas. The European alchemists encoded it in their cryptic texts about turning lead into gold. They all knew the great work is not done in an external laboratory. It's done in the athanor of your own body. And the prima materia, the raw substance that must be transmuted, is sexual energy itself, the densest, hottest, most potent form of qi that flows through your meridians. The Taoists said that 1 drop of sexual essence contains the energetic equivalent of 40 drops of blood. Can you feel the weight of that? The power of that? This is not some metaphor. This is measurable life force. And here's what I need you to understand. The modern world has programmed you to waste it, to spend it carelessly, to believe that more orgasms equals more vitality, more health, more aliveness. They've convinced you that sexual release is always good always healthy, always liberating. But they're wrong. And deep down, beneath the propaganda, your body knows they're wrong. Because you felt what happens after. You felt that energetic crash, that sense of something precious leaving you, that hollow space where your creative fire used to burn. The priestesses of Inanna didn't feel that. Do you know why? Because they practiced something different. They learned to seal the vessel, to circulate the energy, to transform the biological urge into spiritual fuel. And tonight, I'm going to teach you how they did it. Not as ancient history, not as theory, as practice, as method, as a map you can follow from where you are now, depleted, confused, exhausted by your own sexuality, to where the priestesses stood, empowered, sovereign, filled with an inner fire that never went out. This is not easy knowledge. This is not comfortable knowledge. When I transmit this to you, you will not be able to unknow it. You will see your own sexual patterns differently. You will feel the loss differently. And you will have to make a choice about what you do with this awareness. But that choice is freedom. The freedom to reclaim what was stolen, to remember what your ancestors knew, to walk through the 7 gates of sexual alchemy and emerge on the other side transformed. From lead to gold, from negredo to rubedo, from depletion to power. Are you ready? Because there is no going back from here. Once you see the path, you cannot pretend it doesn't exist. You can only choose whether to walk it. Good. Then let us begin. Now, let us look at what actually happens in your body when sexual energy is released. Not the romantic story, not the magazine version, the alchemical truth. Sexual energy, by its very nature, flows in one direction, downward and outward. This is the biological imperative. This is the path of procreation, the path evolution designed to ensure the continuation of the species. Your body doesn't care about your spiritual awakening. Your body cares about making babies. And so it drives the energy down, through the root, through the pelvis, out through the sexual organs, and into the world. This is Negredo in its purest form. the descent into matter, the fixation in the densest, heaviest plane of existence. And when the energy leaves through orgasmic release, the vessel empties. The athanor goes cold. The fire that could have been used for transmutation simply dissipates into the air. Gone. Wasted. Lost. The Taoists had a precise understanding of this. They mapped the body's energy system with meticulous care over thousands of years of practice and observation. And they identified 3 forms of energy that sustain human life. The first is Shen, spirit, consciousness, the light of awareness itself. The second is Qi, the vital force that animates the body, that flows through the meridians, that gives you the capacity to act and move and think. And the third is Jing, essence, the densest, most potent, most concentrated form of life force that exists in your physical form. Jing is stored in the kidneys and the sexual organs. It is the reservoir of your vitality, your longevity, your creative power. And the Taoists understood something crucial. Jing is finite. You are born with a certain amount of prenatal Jing inherited from your parents. You can cultivate postnatal Jing through food, rest, and proper practice. But once your Jing is depleted, aging accelerates, creativity withers, the light in your eyes dims, and sexual release, especially frequent, unconscious sexual release, hemorrhages Jing. The ancient texts say that 1 drop of sexual essence contains the energetic equivalent of 40 drops of blood. Feel the weight of that. Every orgasm that ends in physical release is a massive expenditure of your most precious resource. You know this. You felt it. That bone-deep tiredness after sex. That sense of something vital leaving you. This isn't guilt. This isn't shame. This is physiology. This is energy mechanics. When you release sexually, you are giving away the prima materia, the raw substance that the alchemists knew could be transmuted into spiritual gold. You are pouring out the very thing that could fuel your great work. And here's what makes it even more insidious. The modern world tells you this is healthy. They tell you that more orgasms equal more vitality, more aliveness, more liberation. They pathologize retention. They mock celibacy. They've convinced an entire civilization that the path to power is through release, release, release. When every ancient tradition that produced enlightened masters taught exactly the opposite. The path to power is through circulation, through transmutation, through learning to seal the vessel and redirect the energy upward instead of letting it pour out and be lost. In alchemical terms, what I'm describing is this. Sexual energy is the lead, dense, heavy, fixed in matter. The biological path allows it to remain lead and eventually be discarded. But the alchemical path, the path the priestesses walked, transforms lead into gold through the application of fire, through the circulation in the sealed vessel, through the stages of nigredo, albedo, and finally, rubedo. Your body is the Athenor, the sacred furnace, the crucible where this transformation happens. But only if you know how to tend the fire. Only if you know how to seal the vessel. Only if you know the 7 gates that open the path from depletion to power. And that's what I'm here to show you. Not as theory, not as philosophy, as method, as practice, as a map you can follow step by step. So let's speak plainly about what's been violated here. The natural law that's been broken. Energy flows where attention goes. This is not mysticism. This is physics. Where you place your consciousness, energy follows. The problem with modern sexuality is that all the attention goes outward, toward the partner, toward the friction, toward the explosive moment of release. No one teaches you to direct attention inward, to circulate the energy, to use orgasmic force as fuel rather than as an endpoint. The temple priestesses of Inanna understood this with crystal clarity. When they engaged in sacred sexual practice, their attention was never on pleasure for its own sake. Their attention was on the movement of energy through the body, on opening the channels, on drawing the fire up the spine and into the higher centers, where it could be transformed into spiritual vision, creative power, divine communion. The Taoist masters taught the same thing. They practiced what they called sexual kung fu, not because they were obsessed with sex, but because they understood that sexual energy is simply the most powerful, most accessible form of qi. Master your sexual energy, and you master your entire energetic system. Lose control of your sexual energy, and you lose vitality, clarity, life force itself. This is the law that was broken, the sacred technology that was forgotten, and the consequence of that forgetting. The consequence is the epidemic of depletion you feel every time you give away your essence without transmuting it first. Now, I will transmit to you the framework, the map, the structure through which transmutation becomes possible. These are the 7 gates of sexual alchemy, and they are not metaphors. They are precise, practical stages of energetic transformation that you will learn to walk through, one by one, until the path becomes as natural as breathing. 7 gates, 7 thresholds, 7 initiations that will carry you from Negredo to Rubido, from the blackness of depletion to the golden fire of spiritual power. The first gate is awareness. Before you can transmute sexual energy, you must learn to feel it as a distinct substance, separate from arousal, separate from desire. Most people only notice sexual energy when they're turned on, when it's already flooding the system and demanding release. But the priestesses learned to sense it at all times, as a warm, dense aliveness in the lower belly, as a coiled potential in the base of the spine, as the serpent waiting to rise. This is the first threshold. Can you feel your sexual energy when you're not aroused? Can you place your awareness in the space below your navel and sense the gathering of heat, of density, of power? If not, you cannot transmute what you cannot perceive. So the first gate is learning to develop this inner sensing, to become aware of the prima materia that sits waiting in your lower athanor. The second gate is sealing. Once you can feel the energy, you must learn to hold it, to keep it in the vessel instead of letting it pour out through release. This is the most controversial gate because it contradicts everything the modern world teaches. But understand, sealing is not suppression. Suppression is fighting the energy, forcing it down, creating tension and blockage. Sealing is consciously choosing to redirect the energy before the moment of release. In Taoism, this is called closing the gate. In alchemy, this is sealing the vessel so the volatile spirits cannot escape. The third gate is breath. Breath is the bellows of the athanor. Breath is what fans the fire, what transforms dense matter into something lighter and more subtle. The priestesses and the Taoist masters both understood breath is the single most powerful tool for moving energy. When sexual energy is activated, shallow breathing keeps it trapped in the lower centers. But deep, deliberate breathing draws it upward, circulates it, transmutes it from physical heat into spiritual fire. The fourth gate is the microcosmic orbit. This is the crown jewel of Taoist internal alchemy. This is the energetic circuit that runs up your spine and down the front of your body in a continuous loop. When this circuit opens, sexual energy stops being lost and starts being circulated. It nourishes every organ. It feeds the brain. It activates the higher chakras. The microcosmic orbit is the pathway from lead to gold. The fifth gate is sound. Every spiritual tradition knows sound is vibration, and vibration is the force that elevates frequency. In the Egyptian temples, initiates used specific syllables to move energy through the body. In tantric practice, mantras served the same function. Sound breaks up stagnant energy. Sound raises the octave. Sound transmutes what is dense into what is luminous. The sixth gate is the inner orgasm. This is where everything converges. This is the stage where you learn to have a full-body, orgasmic experience without physical release. The pleasure doesn't explode outward and end in collapse. Instead, it rises in waves through your entire system, through every chakra, every energy center, every cell. This is rubedo beginning to dawn. This is the prima materia starting to glow with golden light. And the seventh gate. The seventh gate is spiritual fire. This is the moment when transmuted sexual energy reaches the crown chakra and becomes pure consciousness, pure spirit. This is the birth of the philosopher's stone in your own body. This is the completion of the great work. These are the 7 thresholds, from sensing energy to holding it, from breathing it upward to circulating it through the orbit, from using sound to elevate its frequency, to experiencing full body orgasm, and finally, to directing all that transmuted force into the highest centers of spiritual awareness. Each gate builds on the one before it. You cannot skip steps. You cannot rush the process. Alchemy unfolds according to its own laws, its own timing. But if you walk through these gates with patience and practice, if you commit to the path the priestesses walked, you will transform from someone who is depleted by sexuality into someone who is empowered by it, from someone who loses life force every time they orgasm, into someone whose orgasms feed their creativity, their vitality, their spiritual clarity. From lead to gold, from negredo to rubedo, from emptiness to power. This is not easy. This is not comfortable. This will require you to go against every conditioning the modern world has placed on you. But this is the path. This is the way. And if you choose to walk it, your life will never be the same. Now, let us begin walking through the gates, one by one. Let us begin the great work. Now we cross the first gate together, the gate of awareness. And I will guide you through your first practice, your first step on the path from depletion to power. Before you can transmute sexual energy, you must learn to feel it. Not when you're aroused, not when desire is flooding your system, but right now, in this moment, as a distinct presence in your body, as a living substance that exists independent of any external stimulus. Most people go their entire lives never sensing their own sexual energy, except in moments of activation. They only notice it when it demands attention, when it surges and wants release. But the priestesses, they developed the capacity to feel this energy at all times, to know exactly where it lived in their bodies, to sense its density, its heat, its potential. This is what you're going to learn right now. I want you to sit comfortably. If you're lying down, that's fine too. Just make sure your spine is relatively straight, not rigid, but aligned. Feel your sitting bones making contact with whatever surface supports you. Feel the ground beneath you. Root yourself here. Now, place both of your hands on your lower belly, below your navel, about 3 finger widths down from your belly button. In Chinese medicine, this is called the lower dantian, the lower energy center. In tantric practice, this corresponds to the Svadhisthana chakra, the sacral center. But forget the names for a moment. Just place your hands here and feel. Close your eyes if you haven't already. Let your awareness drop out of your head and sink down into your belly, down beneath your hands. Notice if there's any warmth there, any sense of density, any subtle aliveness that pulses or glows or simply is. Don't force anything. Don't try to create sensation. Just observe. Just notice. Your sexual energy is already there. It's always there. You're simply learning to perceive what's been present all along. Breathe deeply into this space. Let your belly expand as you inhale. Let it soften and release as you exhale. And with each breath, let your awareness sink deeper into the space beneath your hands, deeper into your lower athanor, deeper into the furnace where the prima materia waits. Some of you will feel warmth building immediately. Some will sense a tingling or a subtle pressure. Some won't feel much of anything yet, and that's completely normal. The pathways of perception need time to open. But whether you feel something now or not, understand this. You are training your nervous system to recognize sexual energy as a separate substance, as something you can sense, something you can direct, something you can work with consciously. This is the foundation. This is the first gate. Practice this every day, just 5 minutes. Sit quietly. Place your hands on your lower belly. Breathe deeply and notice. That's all. Notice what's there. Notice the gathering warmth. Notice the dense aliveness that begins to accumulate when you give it your attention. Because here's the secret the priestesses knew. Energy follows awareness. Where you place your consciousness, the life force concentrates. Modern people place all their awareness on external pleasure, on friction, on the moment of release. So that's where the energy goes. Outward, downward, lost. But when you learn to place awareness inside your own body, in your own energy centers, the current begins to reverse. The energy stops draining away and starts building, starts gathering, starts becoming available for transmutation. This is not suppression. This is direction. This is learning to be the master of your own life force instead of its unconscious servant. Practice this awareness exercise for at least 7 days before moving deeper into the work. 7 days to train your inner sensing, to wake up the dormant pathways, to establish the foundation upon which everything else will be built. And when you can feel your sexual energy, even when you're not aroused, when you can sense it as a warm, alive presence in your lower belly, then you'll be ready to cross the second gate, the gate of sealing. The second gate is where the path becomes challenging. This is where you will learn to hold the energy in your body instead of letting it pour out through release. And I need to address the objection that's already rising in your mind. You're thinking, isn't this suppression? Isn't this unhealthy? Won't holding back sexual energy create blockage, tension, psychological damage? No. And I'll tell you why. Suppression is fighting the energy. Suppression is saying, this is bad. I must force it down. I must deny what I'm feeling. Suppression creates pressure, creates tension, creates the very blockages you're afraid of. But what I'm teaching you is not suppression. What I'm teaching you is redirection. There is a universe of difference between the two. When sexual energy rises in your body, you have two choices. The biological choice is to let it flow down and out through orgasmic release. This is the path of procreation, the path of pleasure followed by depletion, the path that leaves you empty. The alchemical choice is to redirect the energy before the moment of release, to draw it upward through the spine, to circulate it through your system, to use the power of that activated energy to nourish and transform your entire being, instead of spending it in 3 seconds of friction. This is not denying pleasure. This is multiplying it. This is transforming brief external pleasure into sustained internal power. In Taoism, this practice is called closing the gate or sealing the vessel. In alchemy, it's described as ensuring the volatile spirits don't escape the athanor before transmutation is complete. Both traditions understood the same truth. When the vessel is open, the gold pours out before it can form. When the vessel is sealed, the heat builds, the pressure rises, and transformation becomes possible. Now I'm going to teach you the physical practice that makes this possible. This is called the root lock, or in Sanskrit, Mula Bandha. This is the energetic seal that prevents the downward and outward flow of sexual energy. Listen carefully to these instructions. You can practice this sitting or lying down. Make sure you're comfortable and your body is relaxed. Now bring your awareness to your pelvic floor, the hammock of muscles that stretches from your pubic bone to your tailbone. For women, this includes the muscles around the vagina, the perineum, and the anus. Here's what you're going to do. On your next exhale, gently contract these muscles. It's the same action you would use to stop the flow of urine midstream. Not a tight clenching, but a gentle, firm engagement. Draw everything upward and inward. Feel the lift. Feel the seal. Hold this contraction for a count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then release. Let everything soften. Let the muscles relax completely. Do this again. Inhale deeply. Exhale and engage the pelvic floor. Draw up. Seal the root. Hold for 5 counts. And release. Repeat this 10 times. Each time you contract, you're training these muscles to hold energy instead of releasing it. Each time you release, you're teaching them that this isn't about chronic tension. It's about conscious control. Practice this root lock daily. In the morning when you wake, in the evening before sleep. Anytime you have 5 minutes of privacy. Build strength in these muscles the same way you would build strength anywhere in your body. Through repetition, through practice, through patient, consistent effort. And here's why this matters. When sexual energy begins to rise toward orgasm, these are the muscles that will either let it pour out or redirect it upward. If these muscles are weak, if you've never trained them, you won't have the capacity to seal the vessel when the moment comes. The energy will take its biological path, whether you want it to or not. But if you've been practicing, if you've built strength and awareness in your pelvic floor, then you'll have the power to choose. In that critical moment, when the orgasmic wave begins to build, you'll be able to contract strongly, seal the root gate, and force the energy up the spine instead of out through the sexual organs. This is the second gate, the gate of sealing, and it is the foundation of everything that follows. Now we move to the more advanced application, and I need you to understand this next practice is not for beginners. You should spend at least 2 weeks building awareness of your sexual energy and strengthening your root lock before attempting this. But when you're ready, here is the practice that will begin your actual transmutation work. I call this approaching the edge, and it requires privacy, time, and courage. Find a moment when you are alone, when you will not be disturbed. Create sacred space around yourself. This is not casual. This is ritual. This is the beginning of your initiation into the priestess mysteries. Begin to touch yourself. Pleasure yourself. Use whatever method brings you arousal. The goal here is not orgasm. The goal is to build sexual energy in your system so that you can learn to work with it consciously. So bring yourself to arousal. Let the heat build. Let the energy gather in your pelvis. Feel it concentrating, intensifying, demanding release. And then stop. Right before you reach the point of orgasm, stop all stimulation. Immediately contract your pelvic floor as strongly as you can. Engage the root lock with full force. Draw everything up and in. Seal the vessel. And breathe. Deep, slow breaths into your lower belly. Don't let the breath get shallow and rapid the way it wants to during arousal. Force it to stay deep. Force it to stay controlled. Breathe into the space below your navel and feel the energy that was about to explode outward begin to compress inward instead. This is the most critical moment. This is where you will feel the urge to release, to let go, to finish. Your entire biology will be screaming at you to complete the cycle. But don't. Hold the seal. Keep breathing. Keep contracting the pelvic floor. And observe what happens to the energy when it has nowhere to go. It doesn't disappear. It doesn't cause pain or damage. It begins to circulate, to spread, to move into different parts of your body. Some women feel it rise up their spine. Some feel it spread through their belly and chest. Some feel it as a tingling, electric sensation that seems to want to move everywhere at once. This is the beginning of transmutation. This is the moment when sexual energy stops being purely sexual and starts becoming something else. Something more refined. Something more powerful. Stay with this for as long as you can. Keep the pelvic floor engaged. Keep breathing deeply. Keep observing the sensation of energy moving, spreading, rising within you. And when the intensity finally begins to subside, when the urgency to release is past, you can relax the contraction. You can return to neutral and notice how you feel. Notice that instead of the empty crash that follows normal orgasm, there's something different. A fullness, a gentle vibration, a sense that energy is still alive in your system instead of having been spent. This is albedo beginning. This is the whitening, the purification. The prima materia is no longer pure lead. It's starting to transform, starting to become something lighter, something more volatile, something that can rise. Practice this. Not every day. Your system needs time to integrate. But once or twice a week, approach the edge. Build the energy. Stop before release. Seal the root. Breathe. And observe the transmutation beginning. And understand this. You will fail, especially at first. You will reach the edge and not be able to stop. You will contract too late or not strongly enough. You will release when you meant to hold. This is normal. This is part of the learning. The priestesses didn't master this in a week or a month. This is a practice that deepens over years. But every time you attempt it, even if you fail, you're training your nervous system. You're building new pathways. You're teaching your body that there is another way. And eventually, maybe after weeks, maybe after months, there will come a moment when you approach the edge, seal the vessel, and feel the energy rise. Feel it move up your spine like liquid fire. Feel it spread through your chest and into your throat. Feel it reach your crown and open the gateway to something beyond the physical. And in that moment, you will understand why the temples guarded this knowledge, why they called it sacred, why they knew that a woman who masters this practice becomes a force of nature that cannot be controlled, cannot be depleted, cannot be diminished. You become the Athanor. You become the vessel where lead transforms into gold. You become the priestess. This is the second gate. Walk through it with patience. Walk through it with dedication. Walk through it knowing that every attempt, every practice, every moment of conscious choice is moving you closer to mastery. From depletion to power. From negrito to albedo. From unconscious release to conscious transmutation. The path is opening. The vessel is sealing. And the fire is beginning to rise. Let us pause here. Step back from the intensity of practice and observe what has already begun to shift within you. You have learned to feel your sexual energy as a living presence. You have learned to seal the vessel and prevent the outward loss of your life force. These are not small things. These are the foundational skills that the priestesses of Inanna spent years cultivating before they were ever called priestesses at all. Look at what you've learned. You've learned to place awareness in your lower Athanor and sense the gathering heat. You've learned to engage the root lock and hold energy that once poured out unconsciously. You've learned to approach the edge of orgasm and redirect the current before it explodes into emptiness. This is the movement from negrito to albedo, from blackness to whitening, from depletion to purification. Your body is becoming the Athanor, the alchemical furnace where transformation occurs. The sexual energy is the prima materia, the raw substance that will be transmuted. And what you're doing through these practices is learning to tend the fire, to maintain the seal, to create the conditions where lead can become gold. In alchemy, Negredo is the stage of death and dissolution. The old form breaks down. Everything that was solid becomes liquid, chaotic, dark. This is the state of depletion you've been living in. The state where sexual energy drains away and leaves you hollow. The state where you give away your power without even knowing you're doing it. But Negredo is not the end. It's the beginning. Because only what has been dissolved can be reconstituted into something new. Albedo is the stage of purification, the whitening, the moment when the dissolved matter begins to clarify, to separate, to reveal its essential nature. This is where you are now. You're learning to separate sexual energy from the biological imperative. You're learning to see it not as something that must be spent, but as something that can be refined, circulated, transformed. And as you continue to practice, as you continue to seal the vessel and redirect the energy, you're moving toward rubido, the reddening, the stage where the prima materia finally achieves its gold state, where sexual energy becomes spiritual fire, where the power that once left you depleted becomes the power that illuminates your entire being. This is not metaphor. This is description. This is the actual process that unfolds in your energetic body when you practice these techniques with dedication and awareness. Every time you seal the root lock instead of releasing, you're choosing albedo over negredo. Every time you circulate energy instead of spending it, you're moving closer to rubido. Every time you practice, you're tending the fire that will eventually burn bright enough to transform everything. The priestesses understood this with absolute clarity. Their bodies were temples, not because of some poetic metaphor, but because they had literally turned their physical form into a sacred vessel, a place where the divine could be born through the transmutation of the most primal energy. And you are walking the same path they walked. You are learning the same mysteries they learned. You are becoming the Athenor. You are becoming the priestess. Negredo, albedo, rubido. Death, purification, rebirth, depletion, circulation, illumination. This is the arc of the great work, and you are living it. You are embodying it. You are transforming lead into gold through the crucible of your own flesh. Remember this as you continue. Remember that every practice, every moment of conscious redirection, every choice to hold rather than release, All of it is moving you along this arc, from darkness to light, from loss to power, from the death of the old pattern to the birth of something entirely new. The vessel is sealing. The fire is building. And the gold is beginning to form in the depths of your inner furnace. Now we continue. Now we cross the third gate. The third gate is breath. And breath, more than any other tool you possess, is the force that will move energy through your body and transform its nature. In every spiritual tradition, breath is recognized as the bridge between body and spirit, between the physical and the subtle, between what is dense and what is divine. The yogis called it prana, life force carried on the breath. The Taoists called it qi, cultivation through intentional breathing. The alchemists understood breath as the bellows that fans the flames of the Athanor. Without breath, there is no transformation. The energy sits stagnant. The fire smolders, but never blazes. But with breath, with conscious, deliberate, powerful breathing, the energy begins to move, to rise, to transmute from one form into another. Listen carefully to what I'm about to teach you. This is the practice that will activate the fire in your lower Athanor and prepare the energy to rise through the gates that await above. I call this fire breathing, and it is the foundation of all energetic circulation practices in the Taoist tradition. Sit comfortably with your spine straight. Place both hands on your lower belly, just as you did in the awareness practice. Feel the space beneath your hands. Feel the gathering warmth. Feel the potential that lives there. Now take a deep breath in through your nose. As you inhale, let your belly expand outward, not your chest, your belly. Let it swell like a balloon filling with air. Feel your hands rise as your abdomen expands. This is abdominal breathing. This is the breathing pattern that activates the lower energy center. Hold the breath at the top of the inhale for 3 counts. 1, 2, 3. Feel the pressure building. Feel the energy concentrating in your lower belly. Now exhale slowly through your nose or mouth, whichever feels more natural. As you exhale, let your belly contract inward. Draw it back toward your spine. Empty completely. And as you empty the breath, visualize any stagnant energy any tension, any blockage, leaving your body with the outgoing air, empty completely. Pause for a moment in the emptiness, and then inhale again, deep, full, expanding the belly. But this time, as you breathe in, visualize drawing fire from the base of your spine. Imagine a small flame at your tailbone, and as you inhale, that flame travels up slightly, bringing heat and light into your lower athenor, into the space below your navel, where sexual energy concentrates. Hold for 3 counts. Feel the fire gathering. Feel the heat intensifying. And exhale. Let the belly contract, but keep the fire inside. Don't release it with the breath. Just compress it. Concentrate it. Make it burn hotter and brighter. Continue this pattern. Inhale. Belly expands. Draw fire upward from the base of the spine. Hold for 3 counts. Exhale. Belly contracts. Fire concentrates and intensifies. Inhale again. Belly expands. More fire rises. Hold. Exhale. Compress the flames. Do this for 7 minutes. Set a timer if you need to. 7 minutes of fire breathing to activate the athenor, to kindle the flames, to prepare the prima materia for transmutation. As you practice this, you may begin to feel actual heat building in your lower belly. This is not imagination. This is the activation of your metabolic fire, your digestive fire, your sexual fire, all converging in the lower dantian. The Taoists called this the stove of the body, the place where the raw materials are cooked, where lead begins its journey toward gold. Some of you will feel tingling. Some will feel pressure. Some will feel warmth spreading through your pelvis and hips. All of these are signs that the practice is working, that energy is being activated, that the bellows of your breath are successfully fanning the flames. And here's what's crucial to understand. This breathing pattern does more than just activate energy. It changes the nature of the energy. Sexual energy, in its raw state, is heavy, dense, gravitational. It wants to sink down and be released. But when you breathe into it with intention, when you fan it with the bellows of conscious breath, it begins to transform. It becomes lighter, more volatile, more capable of rising. This is albedo deepening. This is the purification process accelerating. You're not just holding energy anymore. You're beginning to refine it, to change its frequency, to prepare it for the journey up the spine. Practice fire breathing every day. 7 minutes in the morning to activate your system. 7 minutes in the evening to circulate and integrate. And any time you engage in sexual practice, whether alone or with a partner, begin with at least 3 minutes of fire breathing first. Kindle the flames. Wake the serpent. Prepare the Athanor for the great work. The third gate is opening. The fire is building. And now you're ready to learn the most important practice of all. The practice that will carry you from albedo to rubido. The practice that will circulate your sexual energy through every cell of your body and transform depletion into illumination. Now you will learn the microcosmic orbit. What I'm about to teach you is the crown jewel of Taoist internal alchemy. This is the practice that monks and masters spent decades perfecting in hidden mountain monasteries. This is the technology that allows human beings to live for 120 years with full vitality. This is the secret the temple priestesses knew but could never speak openly. The microcosmic orbit is an energetic circuit that runs through your body in a continuous loop. Up the back, down the front, up the back, down the front, endlessly circulating, endlessly refining, turning sexual energy into healing energy into spiritual energy into consciousness itself. Your body has two primary energy channels. The first runs up your spine from your tailbone to the crown of your head. In Chinese medicine, this is called the Du Mai, the governing vessel. It's the Yang channel, the channel of fire, of activation, of rising force. The second channel runs down the front center line of your body, from your crown to your perineum. This is the Ren Mai, the conception vessel, the Yin channel, the channel of water, of nourishment, of descending grace. When these two channels connect and energy flows between them in a continuous circuit, you have opened the microcosmic orbit. And once this orbit is open, sexual energy no longer drains away. Instead, it circulates. It feeds your organs. It nourishes your brain. It activates your spiritual centers. It becomes a self-sustaining source of vitality that grows stronger with practice rather than diminishing with use. Now, I will teach you how to open this circuit. Listen carefully. This is precise work. This is the technical instruction that changes everything. Sit in a comfortable position with your spine straight. Close your eyes. Place the tip of your tongue against the roof of your mouth, just behind your front teeth. This is crucial. The tongue acts as a bridge that completes the circuit between the two channels. Without this connection, the energy cannot flow continuously. Bring your awareness to your perineum, the space between your genitals and your anus. This is the starting point of the orbit, the root, the base of the governing vessel. Now inhale slowly. As you breathe in, visualize energy beginning to move from your perineum upward along your spine. See it as light. See it as fire. See it as liquid mercury. Whatever image feels most alive to you. Draw this energy up from the root, along the tailbone, up the curve of your lower back. Continue inhaling and continue drawing the energy upward, up through your mid-back, up between your shoulder blades, up the back of your neck, and finally, as you complete the inhale, bring the energy all the way to the crown of your head, to the very top of your skull, where the soft spot was when you were a baby. Hold the breath for just a moment at the crown. Feel the energy pooling there. Feel the top of your head tingling, or warming, or simply aware. And now exhale. As you breathe out, visualize the energy descending down the front of your body, down from your crown, through your forehead, through your face, down your throat, down the center of your chest, down through your solar plexus and belly, and finally, back down to the perineum where you began. This is one complete cycle of the microcosmic orbit. Inhale up the back, from perineum to crown. Exhale down the front, from crown to perineum. This is the circuit. This is the orbit. This is the pathway of transmutation. Now do it again. Inhale. Energy rises up the spine from root to crown. Hold briefly at the top. Exhale. Energy descends down the front from crown to root. Pause at the bottom and inhale again, up the back. Exhale, down the front. Continue this pattern. Don't rush it. Each breath should take 15 to 20 seconds. Slow, deep, intentional. And with each cycle, visualize the energy moving more smoothly along the path, up the back, down the front, up the back, down the front. At first, you probably won't feel much. The channels haven't opened yet. The pathways are dormant from years or decades of neglect. But if you practice this every day, 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening, the channels will begin to clear. The energy will begin to flow. And eventually, you won't need to visualize anymore. You'll simply feel it. A warm current moving up your spine with each inhale. A cool descent down your front with each exhale. And here's what makes this practice so powerful for sexual alchemy. When you combine the microcosmic orbit with sexual energy, the effect multiplies 1,000-fold. Because sexual energy is the most potent, most concentrated form of qi in your body. When you learn to circulate sexual energy through the orbit instead of releasing it, you're feeding every organ, every gland, every cell with the most powerful fuel that exists. So here's the advanced application. When you practice approaching the edge, when you build sexual energy to the point just before orgasm, and then seal the root, immediately begin the microcosmic orbit. Contract the pelvic floor strongly. Begin breathing deeply. And with each inhale, draw that concentrated sexual energy up your spine. Feel it rise like liquid fire from your pelvis up through your back to your crown. And with each exhale, let it descend gently down your front, nourishing your heart, your throat, your face, your brain. Circulate it, refine it, transform it from raw sexual heat into something more subtle, more luminous, more divine. This is how the priestesses maintained their power. This is how the Taoist masters lived to be 120 years old with perfect health. This is how sexual energy stops being a curse of depletion and becomes a blessing of endless vitality. Practice the microcosmic orbit daily, whether you're sexually activated or not. Build the pathway first. Make it strong and clear. And then, when you bring sexual energy into the practice, the orbit will be ready to receive it, ready to circulate it, ready to transmute lead into gold through the continuous refinement of circulation. This is the fourth gate, the gate of the orbit, the gate where energy stops being lost and starts being multiplied, where the vessel becomes not just sealed, but circulating, where the athanor reaches the temperature and pressure necessary for true transformation. You have now crossed 4 of the 7 gates. Awareness, sealing, breath, orbit. Each one builds on the one before. Each one prepares you for the next. And what awaits ahead? What awaits in the 5th, 6th, and 7th gates will carry you from albedo to rubido, from purification to the birth of spiritual fire, from the whitening to the golden dawn. The path is clear. The vessel is strong. The fire is rising. And you are becoming what the priestesses were, a master of the life force, a keeper of the sacred flame, a woman who transforms rather than being drained by her own power. Rest now if you need to. Integrate what you've learned. And when you're ready, we will cross the remaining gates together. We will complete the great work. We will transform lead into gold. The journey continues. The fire burns, and the gold is being born. Now we approach the 5th gate, the gate of sound. And here, the practice becomes something ancient mystery schools held as their deepest secret. Because sound is not just vibration in the air. Sound is the force that elevates frequency. Sound is the tool that breaks apart what is dense and raises it to a higher octave of existence. Every spiritual tradition understood this. In the Egyptian temples, initiates learned specific syllables that corresponded to different energy centers in the body. Each sound, when properly vocalized, would activate and purify a particular chakra. In Sanskrit, these are called bija mantras, seed sounds, single syllables that contain within them the vibrational signature of divine force. In tantric practice, the mantra Om is considered the primordial sound, the vibration from which all creation emerged. When you chant Om correctly, you're not just making noise. You're aligning your entire energetic system with the fundamental frequency of the universe itself. And in the temples of Inanna, the priestesses used sound to move sexual energy from the root chakra to the heart center, to transform raw desire into sacred devotion, to elevate what was animal into what was divine. The sound they used most often was the syllable ha, not the short, sharp ha of laughter, but a long, sustained, deep ha that originates in the belly and rises through the chest and throat like smoke from a sacred fire. This is the practice I will teach you now, the practice of sound transmutation, the practice that will take the sexual energy you've learned to feel, to seal, to breathe, to circulate, and elevate it to an even higher frequency, to prepare it for the final stages of the great work. Stand if you're able, or sit with your spine very straight. Place one hand on your lower belly and one hand on your heart center. Feel the distance between these 2 points. Feel the vertical channel that connects them. This is the path the sound will travel. Take a deep breath in. Fill your belly with air. Feel your lower hand rise as your abdomen expands. And as you begin to exhale, make the sound ha, long, sustained. Let it emerge from deep in your belly, not from your throat. Ha. Feel the vibration in your lower belly, where your first hand rests. Feel how the sound creates a resonance in your core. And as you continue the sound, as you sustain it through the length of your exhale, visualize the vibration traveling upward, moving from your belly to your solar plexus, from your solar plexus to your heart, rising like heat, rising like light, rising on the wings of sound itself. Let me demonstrate. Listen to the quality of the sound, not forced, not harsh, but deep and resonant and sustained. Ha. Now you try. Inhale deeply into your belly, and as you exhale, release the sound. Ha. Let it rise from your root, through your belly, into your heart. Feel the vibration moving the energy upward along your central channel. Do this 10 times. 10 long, sustained ha sounds. And with each one, feel the vibrational frequency breaking up any stagnation in your lower centers, breaking apart density, making what was heavy become light, making what was stuck begin to flow. Inhale and ha. Again. Inhale and ha. Feel your entire torso resonating with the sound. Feel the energy that was concentrated in your lower athanor beginning to rise toward your heart, beginning to transform from sexual heat into something closer to love, to devotion, to the sacred fire that burns in the center of your chest. This is the alchemical function of sound. It loosens what is fixed. It volatilizes what is dense. It carries energy from lower centers to higher centers on waves of pure vibration. And the more you practice this, the more powerful the effect becomes. The priestesses would chant these sounds for hours, not as performance, not as ritual for its own sake, but as technology, as method, as the precise tool needed to move energy through the body's vertical axis and transform its nature in the process. And here's the advanced application. When you practice sexual cultivation, when you build energy to the edge and seal the vessel and begin the microcosmic orbit, add sound to the practice. As the energy moves up your spine with each inhale, make the sound ha. Let the vibration carry the energy higher. Let it break apart any blockage. Let it transform what is dense into what is luminous. Sound is the fifth gate, the gate where transmutation accelerates, where the prima materia that has been held, breathed, and circulated now begins to change its essential nature, where sexual energy becomes heart energy, where desire becomes devotion, where the lead of physical hunger starts glowing with the first hint of spiritual gold. Practice this daily. 5 minutes of sustained ha sounds, moving energy from belly to heart. And notice how, over time, your entire energetic system begins to lighten, to clarify, to vibrate at a higher frequency. This is albedo approaching completion. This is the white light of purification intensifying as you prepare to cross into rubedo, into the reddening, the final stage, the birth of gold. The fifth gate is opening. The sound is doing its work. And now you stand at the threshold of the sixth gate. The gate where everything you've learned converges into a single, profound experience. The gate of the inner orgasm. The sixth gate is where the practice becomes initiation, where technique transforms into direct experience, where you discover that orgasm is not what you've been taught it is, not a 3-second explosion followed by collapse and depletion, but a full body wave of energy that can last for minutes, for hours, that nourishes instead of drains, that opens instead of closes, that leaves you more alive than you were before. This is what the priestesses knew. This is what the Taoist masters cultivated. This is the experience that makes sexual energy not a curse, but a blessing. Not a source of depletion, but a wellspring of endless vitality. I need you to understand. The inner orgasm is not suppressed pleasure. It is not denied ecstasy. It is multiplied pleasure. It is ecstasy that spreads through your entire system instead of being concentrated in a single point for a single moment. This is rubido beginning to dawn. This is the moment when the prima materia starts to glow with golden light. When all the practices you've learned, awareness, sealing, breath, orbit, sound, converge into a single alchemical event. Let me describe what this experience is like when it happens successfully, because you need to know what you're working toward. You need to know what awaits when you master this gate. You're engaged in sexual practice, either alone or with a partner. You've activated sexual energy through whatever means feel natural to you. And as the arousal builds, as the pressure and heat intensify, you approach the familiar edge, the point where a biological orgasm would normally occur, where the energy would explode outward, drain away, and leave you empty. But this time, you don't cross that edge. This time, you've been practicing. Your pelvic floor is strong from months of root lock training. Your awareness is sharp from daily meditation on your lower dantian. Your breath is controlled from fire breathing practice. Your microcosmic orbit is open from patient, consistent circulation work. So as you approach the edge, you engage everything you know. You contract your pelvic floor powerfully. You seal the root gate. You breathe deeply into your belly and draw the energy up your spine on the inhale. You make the sound ha to carry the energy higher with vibration. And instead of the energy exploding outward through your genitals, it compresses inward. It intensifies. And then it begins to rise up through your sacrum, up through your lower back, up between your shoulder blades, up the back of your neck, and into your head. You feel it flooding your brain with warmth, with light, with a pleasure so much more vast than genital orgasm that there's no comparison. But it doesn't stop there. The energy continues to circulate down the front of your body now, down through your face, your throat, your chest. And as it moves through your heart center, you feel something open, a tenderness, a love that has nothing to do with another person, a devotion to existence itself. The energy continues down through your solar plexus, your belly, and back to your root where it gathers again, ready to rise once more. And this isn't a 3-second event. This is a wave that can last for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, as long as you can maintain the seal, the breath, the circulation. Wave after wave of orgasmic energy moving through your entire body, through every chakra, through every cell, nourishing, healing, illuminating. This is the inner orgasm. This is what happens when sexual energy is circulated instead of released. This is the experience that transforms sexuality from something that depletes you into something that empowers you. And once you've experienced this even once, you will never want to go back to the old way. Because the old way is poverty. And this is wealth beyond measure. Now let me give you the precise instructions for cultivating this experience. Because this is not luck. This is not grace randomly bestowed. This is technique. This is method. This is practice that produces results when done correctly. Begin with at least 10 minutes of preparation. Fire breathing to activate your lower athanor. Several rounds of the microcosmic orbit to open the channels. A few minutes of ha sound to clear any blockages. You are preparing the vessel. You are ensuring the pathways are clear before you introduce the most powerful energy. Then begin sexual stimulation. If you're alone, touch yourself in whatever way creates arousal. If you're with a partner, engage in whatever intimacy you both desire. The goal is to build sexual energy, to activate the fire, to create the raw material that will be transmuted. As arousal builds, maintain deep abdominal breathing. Don't let your breath become shallow and rapid. Keep it deep. Keep it controlled. This is crucial. Shallow breathing keeps energy trapped in the pelvis. Deep breathing allows it to rise. As you approach the edge of orgasm, and you'll know this point, it's the moment when one more touch, one more thrust, one more breath would tip you over into explosive release. This is when you engage everything. Contract your pelvic floor with maximum force. Draw everything up and in. Hold this contraction as if your life depends on it. Because in a sense, it does. This contraction is what prevents the downward and outward flow. This contraction is what forces the energy to find another path. The path up the spine. Breathe deeply into your belly. Draw the energy upward with the inhale. See it. Feel it. Know it, rising from your perineum, up your spine toward your crown. If it helps, make the sound ha to carry it higher on vibrations. Use every tool you have: breath, visualization, sound, muscular engagement, all of it working together to redirect the orgasmic current from outward explosion to inward and upward circulation. And here's what you must understand. You might not succeed the first time, or the second, or the 10th. You might contract too late and release anyway. You might not be able to hold the seal long enough. The energy might not rise the way you want it to. This is normal. This is expected. The nervous system needs time to learn this new pattern. But keep practicing. Every attempt strengthens the pathway. Every time you seal the root instead of releasing, even if the energy doesn't rise immediately, you're training the system. You're teaching your body that there is another option. And eventually, maybe after a month, maybe after 3 months, maybe after 6, there will come a moment when everything aligns. When you seal the root at exactly the right instant, with exactly the right force. When your breath is deep and your channels are clear. When the energy has nowhere to go but up. And when that moment comes, when you feel orgasmic energy flooding up your spine and spreading through your entire body, when you experience pleasure that lasts for minutes instead of seconds, when you finish the practice feeling more energized than when you started, instead of depleted, you will know. You will know that this path is real, that the priestesses were not speaking in metaphors, that the alchemists were describing actual processes, that lead truly can become gold. This is the 6th gate, the gate of the inner orgasm. This is where rubedo fully dawns, where the fire reaches its maximum intensity, where the prima materia finally glows with golden light, where sexual energy becomes spiritual power, where depletion transforms into illumination. Practice this. Be patient with yourself. Honor the learning process. And know that every woman who has walked this path before you faced the same challenges, the same doubts, the same initial failures. But those who persisted, those who practiced with dedication, they all eventually crossed this threshold. And when they did, their lives changed forever. The 6th gate is opening. Rubedo is birthing. And you are becoming what you were always meant to be. A master of your own life force. A priestess of the sacred fire. A woman who is never again depleted by her own power. And now we arrive at the moment I have been preparing you for since the beginning of this transmission, the moment where you must choose. Because everything I've taught you tonight has brought you to this threshold. And what you do next will determine whether this knowledge transforms your life or becomes just another interesting idea you once heard. You now know what the priestesses knew. You know the 7 gates of sexual alchemy. You know how to feel your sexual energy. You know how to seal the vessel. You know how to breathe fire into the Athanor. You know how to circulate energy through the microcosmic orbit. You know how to use sound to elevate frequency. You know how to cultivate the inner orgasm. And in a moment, I will teach you the 7th gate, the final gate, where all of this transmuted energy is directed into your crown center and becomes pure spiritual consciousness. But before I do, I need you to understand something. I need you to understand that you cannot unknow what you now know. You can ignore it. You can pretend you never heard this. You can go back to your old patterns of unconscious release and depletion. You can continue to give away your life force without ever learning to circulate it. You can choose that path. It's always available to you. But you cannot become unknowing. You cannot return to innocence, because now you've seen the map. Now you understand why you've been feeling depleted after sex. Now you know that there's another way, a path that leads from exhaustion to empowerment, from negredo to rubido, from the blackness of lost potential to the golden light of spiritual power. And once you've seen the path, ignoring it becomes a choice, a conscious choice to refuse your own transformation, to turn away from your own power, to betray the lineage of priestesses who held this knowledge for thousands of years, so that someday, somehow, it might return to you. So here's the question. Here's the only question that matters now. What will you do with this knowledge? Will you practice? Will you actually sit down tomorrow morning and spend 10 minutes doing fire breathing? Will you strengthen your pelvic floor with root lock repetitions? Will you dedicate 15 minutes to opening the microcosmic orbit? Will you approach the edge and learn to seal the vessel? Will you cultivate the inner orgasm until orgasmic energy feeds your entire system instead of draining it? Or will this remain theory? Will this be something you found fascinating, but never actually implemented? Will you let fear, or laziness, or doubt prevent you from walking through these gates. Because I've transmitted the knowledge. I've given you the map. I've shown you the practices step by step. But I cannot walk the path for you. I cannot do your practices. I cannot transform your energy. Only you can do that. And only you can choose whether or not you will. The priestesses of Inanna made that choice. They chose dedication over comfort. They chose transformation over the familiar. They chose to master their own life force, even when the entire culture around them said it was shameful, forbidden, wrong. And because they made that choice, because they practiced these techniques with absolute commitment, they became forces of nature. They became conduits of divine power. They became women who could not be controlled, could not be depleted, could not be diminished. They became sovereign. And now the same choice stands before you. Not someday, not after you've thought about it for a while. Right now, in this moment, will you commit to the path? Will you cross these 7 gates? Will you transform your sexual energy from a source of depletion into a source of power? Or will you let this moment pass? Will you close this video, go back to your life, and slowly forget everything you've learned here? Will you allow the old patterns to reassert themselves because they're easier, more familiar, more comfortable than the intensity of transformation? The choice is yours. It has always been yours. But understand this: if you choose to walk this path, if you choose to practice these techniques, if you choose to cross these 7 gates, your life will never be the same. You will never again be someone who is unconsciously drained by her own sexuality. You will become someone who consciously cultivates and circulates and transmutes her most powerful energy into spiritual force. From depletion to power. From negredo to rubido. From unconscious biological release to conscious alchemical transformation. This is the path. This is the great work. And it begins not with inspiration, not with understanding, but with practice, with the daily, patient, dedicated application of these techniques until they become second nature, until your body knows the path without your mind directing it, until the circulation of energy is as natural as breathing. So make the choice now. Commit or don't. But don't lie to yourself. Don't tell yourself you'll start someday. Don't pretend you'll practice when you have more time. Either commit now to beginning tomorrow morning, or acknowledge that you're choosing the old way. Either way, be honest with yourself. Because the lineage of priestesses doesn't need more people who find this interesting. It needs practitioners. It needs women who will actually do the work, who will seal the vessel and circulate the energy and walk through the 7 gates until they reach the other side. Women who will reclaim what was stolen. Women who will remember what was forgotten. Women who will become the living embodiment of sacred power. Are you one of them? Are you willing to do what it takes? Are you ready to transform from lead into gold? If the answer is yes, if you feel that fire in your belly, that knowing in your bones, that this is your path, then stay with me, because we have one more gate to cross. The 7th gate. The gate where transmuted sexual energy reaches the crown and becomes spiritual illumination. Where the great work is complete. Where the philosopher's stone is born. And if the answer is no, if you're not ready, if this isn't your time, then that's okay too. Close this teaching with gratitude. Thank the priestesses for preserving the knowledge. And perhaps someday, when the time is right, you'll return to it. The gates will still be here. The path will still be open, waiting for the moment when you're ready to cross. But if you're staying, if you've chosen yes, then take a breath. Feel your commitment settling into your body. Feel the weight of this choice. Feel the power of it. And prepare yourself for the final transmission. The 7th gate awaits. Good. You've chosen to continue. You've chosen the path of the priestess. And now I will transmit to you the final gate. The 7th gate. The gate where sexual energy, fully transmuted, reaches the crown of your head and becomes pure spiritual consciousness, where the great work is complete, where rubedo reaches its fullest expression, where the philosopher's stone is born. The Taoists called this practice returning the Jing to nourish the Shen, returning the essence to nourish the spirit. In alchemical terms, this is the final stage of transmutation. The lead has passed through fire. The prima materia has been purified through nigredo, clarified through albedo, and ignited through rubedo. And now, Now it achieves its golden state. Now it becomes the substance that illuminates consciousness itself. This is not metaphor. This is describing an actual process in your subtle body. When sexual energy rises all the way to your crown chakra, when it reaches the Sahasrara, the 1,000-petaled lotus, it transforms into something beyond energy. It becomes light. It becomes awareness. It becomes the direct experience of unity with all that is. The seventh gate is practiced after you have cultivated the inner orgasm, after you have successfully circulated orgasmic energy through the microcosmic orbit multiple times, after the channels are clear and strong, and the energy flows naturally without force. Here is the practice. Listen carefully. You have built sexual energy and sealed the vessel. You have circulated it through the microcosmic orbit. The energy is moving up your spine with each inhale, down your front with each exhale. Your entire body is vibrating with this circulating current. You are in a state of continuous, full body, orgasmic bliss. And now, you direct all of that accumulated, transmuted energy to one point, the crown of your head. As you inhale and draw energy up your spine, instead of letting it descend back down the front immediately, hold it at the crown. Visualize all the golden light you've been circulating gathering at the very top of your skull. See it pooling there like liquid sunlight. Feel the pressure building. Feel the warmth. Feel the intensity concentrating at your crown chakra. Hold your breath for a few seconds at the top of the inhale. Keep the energy gathered at your crown, and then, instead of bringing it back down the front channel, visualize it spilling out the top of your head, pouring upward like a fountain, expanding into the infinite space above you, connecting you to something vast, something limitless, something divine. This is the moment when individual consciousness touches universal consciousness. When your small self dissolves into the infinite self. When the boundaries between you and existence become permeable, transparent, illusory. This is spiritual awakening through the body. This is enlightenment rising on the wings of sexual energy, transformed. The first time you experience this, it may last only a few seconds. A brief flash of something beyond the personal. A glimpse through the veil But with practice, this state can be sustained for minutes, for longer, until you learn to rest in it naturally, until you understand that this expanded awareness is not separate from you. It is you, your true nature, your essence, what you've always been beneath the layers of conditioning and contraction. And here's what makes this the completion of the great work. When sexual energy reaches the crown and opens into universal consciousness, you are no longer someone who is depleted by sexuality. You are someone who uses sexuality as the doorway to the divine. You are someone who transforms the most primal force into the most transcendent experience. The priestesses of Inanna knew this state. They called it union with the goddess. The tantric yogis called it samadhi. The alchemists called it the birth of the philosopher's stone. Different words for the same experience. The experience of total transformation, of lead become gold, of human consciousness touching divine consciousness through the vehicle of transmuted sexual energy. This is the seventh gate, the final threshold, the completion of the arc from nigredo to rubido, from depletion to illumination, from darkness to light, from death to rebirth. And when you have crossed this gate, when you have experienced the crown opening through circulated sexual energy, you will understand why this knowledge was called sacred, why it was protected, why the priestesses guarded it for thousands of years. Because this is not just about sex. This is about the full potential of human consciousness. This is about what becomes possible when we learn to work consciously with the most powerful energy we possess. You now hold the complete map, the 7 gates of sexual alchemy. Gate 1, awareness. Gate 2, sealing. Gate 3, breath. Gate 4, the microcosmic orbit. Gate 5, sound. Gate 6, the inner orgasm. And Gate 7, spiritual fire. From feeling energy to directing it to the crown. From recognizing the prima materia to transmuting it into gold. From nigredo to albedo to rubido. The complete arc of the great work. But the map is not the territory. Knowledge is not practice. Understanding is not mastery. And so now I give you the path forward, the structure that will carry you from where you are now to full embodiment of these teachings. I call this the 40-day initiation. 40 days because that is the traditional period of spiritual transformation in nearly every tradition. 40 days in the desert, 40 days of fasting, 40 days of practice to break old patterns and establish new ones. 40 days to move from theory to embodied wisdom. Here is your structure. Follow this exactly for 40 days and you will transform. I promise you this. Not as speculation, not as hope, as certainty born from thousands of years of practitioners who have walked this path before you. Days 1 through 7. Week 1. Your only practice is the first gate, awareness. Every morning, sit for 10 minutes with your hands on your lower belly. Breathe deeply into the space below your navel. Learn to feel sexual energy as a distinct presence. Do nothing else. Just develop this basic awareness. This is your foundation. Days 8 through 14. Week 2. Continue the awareness practice, but now add the second gate, root lock. Practice contracting your pelvic floor 10 to 15 times every morning and evening. Build strength in these muscles. Learn to engage them powerfully and release them completely. By the end of week 2, you should be able to hold a strong root lock for 30 seconds without trembling. Days 15 through 21. Week 3. Continue awareness and root lock. Now add the third gate, fire breathing. 7 minutes every morning. Deep abdominal breathing, visualizing fire rising from the base of your spine into your lower belly. This is when you begin to activate real heat, real gathering of energy in your lower athanor. Days 22 through 30. Weeks 4 and 5. This is when you introduce the fourth gate, the microcosmic orbit. Every day, practice circulating energy up your spine and down your front for 10 to 15 minutes, tongue touching the roof of your mouth. Slow, deep breathing. Patient visualization of the circuit. By day 30, the pathway should be starting to open. You might feel warmth, tingling, or simply a sense of flow along the orbit. Days 31 through 35. Now you add the fifth gate, sound. Practice the ha syllable for 5 minutes daily. 10 long, sustained sounds, moving energy from belly to heart through vibration. You're adding another tool to your arsenal, another way to move and transform energy. Days 36 through 39. These are the days when you begin attempting the sixth gate, the inner orgasm. Create sacred space. Take your time. Use all the tools you've been developing: awareness, root lock, fire breathing, microcosmic orbit, sound. Build sexual energy. Approach the edge. Seal the vessel. And attempt to circulate orgasmic energy instead of releasing it. You might fail. That's fine. Each attempt trains the nervous system. Each attempt strengthens the pathway. And day 40, the final day. On this day, if you've been practicing faithfully, you attempt the complete practice, all 7 gates. You activate energy through fire breathing. You circulate it through the orbit. You use sound to elevate frequency. You build to orgasmic intensity. You seal the root. You circulate the energy through your entire body, and you direct it to your crown. You open the 7th gate. This is your initiation. This is your path from ignorance to mastery. 40 days, not 40 weeks, not 40 months. 40 days of dedicated practice to fundamentally transform your relationship with sexual energy. To move from someone who is depleted by orgasm to someone who is empowered by it. From negredo to rubido. From lead to gold. And I need you to understand, this is not optional if you want results. This is not a suggestion. This is the method. This is how transformation happens. Not through understanding, not through intention, through practice, through daily, patient, dedicated practice, until these techniques become second nature. The priestesses didn't become priestesses by thinking about these practices. They became priestesses by doing them. Every day. For months. For years. Until their bodies knew the path without their minds directing it. Until circulation of energy was as natural as breathing. Until they were living embodiments of the sacred flame. And you, if you follow this 40-day path, you will join that lineage. You will become a keeper of the flame, a holder of knowledge that was nearly lost, a woman who transforms rather than being drained by her own power. And now we return to where we began. Do you remember? At the beginning of this transmission, I asked you about that feeling. That feeling after a sexual contact when, instead of being filled, you feel emptied, drained, as if someone wrung you out and all your vitality just left. You felt it in your body, that hollow ache, that sense that something vital had departed, that exhaustion that wasn't just physical, but deeper, energetic. spiritual. The feeling that sex was taking from you instead of giving to you. Now you understand why. Now you see the mechanism. Sexual energy, when released unconsciously, hemorrhages Jing. It pours out the prima materia before transmutation can occur. It drains the athanor before the fire can transform lead into gold. It perpetuates nigredo, the blackening, the emptying, the death of potential. But now you also know the other path, the path the priestesses walked, the path where sexual energy doesn't leave, where it circulates, where it rises up the spine and feeds every cell, every organ, every energy center, where orgasm becomes not an end point, but a beginning, not a loss, but a multiplication, not 3 seconds of pleasure followed by collapse, but waves of energy that sustain and illuminate for minutes, for hours, for as long as you can hold the circulation. Now you know that depletion is not destiny, that the emptiness after sex is not inevitable, that there is another way, a way that requires practice, requires dedication, requires you to go against everything the modern world teaches, but a way that works, a way that transforms, a way that turns the curse of depletion into the blessing of endless vitality. From nigredo to rubido, from darkness to light, from the death of your power to the birth of your sovereignty. This is the arc you've learned tonight. This is the map you now hold. And whether you walk this path or not, that choice, as I've said, is yours and yours alone. But know this, the lineage is waiting. The priestesses who held this knowledge across millennia are watching. And every time a woman chooses to practice these techniques, every time someone crosses these 7 gates, every time sexual energy is consciously transmuted instead of unconsciously wasted, the lineage grows stronger. The flame burns brighter, and the possibility of sacred sexuality returns a little bit more to this world. You are not alone on this path. You are part of something ancient, something powerful, something that was nearly destroyed but refused to die. And when you practice, you are not just transforming yourself. You are contributing to the resurrection of sacred knowledge. You are helping to restore what was stolen. So here is my final instruction to you. Begin tomorrow, not next week, not when you feel ready. Tomorrow morning. Set your alarm 15 minutes earlier than usual. Sit in a quiet place. place your hands on your lower belly and breathe. Just breathe and notice. Practice the first gate. Start walking the path. And as you continue, as you move through the 40 days, as you cross gate after gate, and feel your energy beginning to circulate instead of drain, remember why you're doing this. Remember that you're reclaiming your power. Remember that you're healing not just your own depletion, but the depletion of every woman who was taught that sexuality was shameful, dangerous, something to be feared rather than mastered. Remember that your body is the Athenor, that sexual energy is the prima materia, that transformation is not just possible, it is your birthright. And when you finally cross the 7th gate, when you feel transmuted sexual energy opening your crown and touching the infinite, you will know. You will know that this was always true, that the priestesses were not myth, but memory, that the gold was always possible, that you were always meant to be sovereign. From lead to gold, from negredo to rubido, from depletion to power. The path is clear, the gates are open, and the great work begins now. If this teaching has resonated with you, if you feel the call to walk through these 7 gates, if you recognize yourself in the lineage of priestesses who held this sacred flame, write in the comments below, "I am ready to remember." Let me know you're on this path. Let the community know. Let yourself know through the act of writing it. Make the commitment real. And whether you comment or not, whether you practice or not, know that this knowledge has been transmitted. The seed has been planted. And seeds have a way of growing when the time is right, even if they lie dormant for seasons before they sprout. Go now. Rest. Integrate what you've learned. And tomorrow, begin. Cross the first gate. Feel your energy. Start the journey. Walk the path the priestesses walked. Transform lead into gold. Reclaim your power. The great work awaits. And you are ready. The transmission is complete.